Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. I'm excited to be attending and recording shows at Rainmaker 2016. You can join keynote speaker Gary Vaynerchuk along with modern revenue leaders at the only conference dedicated to the sales development industry, March 7th to 9th in Atlanta. Get tickets now to receive cutting-edge sales content from thought leaders, learn best practices during breakout sessions, and come network with the world's top sales influencers. If you use the promo code BTFS and the number 30, you'll get 30% off. More information is on the show website at buildingthefutureshow.com. I'm also going to be at the Business Rocks Tech, Music, and Investment Summit recording shows live in Manchester, England, April 21st and 22nd, where Steve Wozniak is headlining. More information about the summit is on the show website at buildingthefutureshow.com. All right, well, Saba, welcome back to the show. Thanks for doing this again. You're my first guest I've had 3 times, so I'm excited. It's good, but it's good. The first 2 shows did really well. I'm excited to do this third one, and I'm even more excited that you can kind of tell me why Snapchat is good for business.
Well, thanks for having me on the show again, Kevin. I guess we're jumping right into it.
Sure.
So let's start with a little bit about what Snapchat is for those who don't know, because I'm assuming that although we may be talking about it a lot on social media and in marketing, a lot of people that are not familiar with social networks are really confused. And they don't really understand the user interface. They don't understand, how it works. Why is it that so many people are on the platform? And so just to break it down for people, Snapchat is a really easy way to not only create, but to share micro content. And the micro content is created in 10-second pictures or 10-second videos. And those are able to be manipulated or quote unquote, you can layer on top with creative, such as drawing, text, emojis, you can draw graphics. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize the platform in order to basically tell a story, which is what marketing has really boiled down to in the recent years is storytelling. And how do you create a story that's not only engaging, compelling, but is also able to capture an audience so that other people are wanting to kind of chime into that conversation.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I think in some ways, Snapchat kind of gets a bit of a bad rap in the media for the kind of traditional stuff that people send on there. And to be fair, I don't really use Snapchat. So I'm kind of curious and basically why I want to have you on the show, because you understand how it's useful and whatnot. So maybe do you want to kind of talk about how you've used Snapchat with kind of your clients and how you've seen business use Snapchat?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that you can use Snapchat. So think of Snapchat as a way of talking to your customers and your community, right? And so, for example, name a type of business, Kevin.
Let's say like airline, for example.
Okay, great, an airline. So an airline, their narrative as a story is what? It's traveling, it's giving you an experience, it's relaxation, it's making sure that you're getting from A to B, wherever you're going, in the best way possible. And so a way to utilize Snapchat is to actually show them what are the different experiences and what are the type of people that are utilizing this platform.
Okay.
Right. And so you're basically giving them a lens into that world and that brand, right? So if you, for example, take American Airlines, right? An American airline has a vision and a mission, a way that they do business. You basically try to capture all of that while you're Snapchat storytelling. So you're creating different types of videos, you're creating Snapchat pictures, you're talking to your audience because you can actually talk in not only short form text, but also long form text. And one of the great things about Snapchat, well, I personally think so, is that there's so many hacks. And so many of the amazing features is not actually visible to someone that doesn't know how to use it. So you have to go out there and really understand, okay, these are all the different hacks that I can use in order to kind of up my game and to show my audience that I can communicate with them.
Okay. So when you say hacks, like maybe do you want to give some examples? Because to be honest, I don't even know
what that would really mean. I understand what a hack is, but I don't like give us some examples of hacks, I guess.
Okay, so one of the hacks is that you can only talk or you can only put text in short form. And so what that means is you only have about one sentence of space. Now, if you go into your notes and you create text where you skip lines, you can actually put in as much text as you want, and then you copy paste that content in there, right? So you can actually write down a whole message, or you can write down a whole description. And for those that are in the audience right now listening live on Blab with us, they have followed me, and I do movie reviews sometimes. I do restaurant reviews. And so I go down and I say, what's the rating for the food here? What's the rating for the ambiance? What is the overall score? Where was this restaurant located? What did I eat there? And so it's a way for you to actually be able to communicate instead of, for example, putting it in a blog post, right?
Right.
And so it's all about, 10 seconds of marketing. How can you capture that person's attention in 10 seconds? But really you have more time, right? Because you're layering these snap stories together. So someone's snap story might be 2-3 minutes long, but they're only in 10-second increments, if that makes sense.
Okay. So I know you mentioned before, kind of when we talked about this, that you've seen people use it for like couponing and whatnot. Can you target people based on location, or is it just your followers, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so it's not geographically based. You can add people that are nearby so that you're more specific to where you live, but it's a little bit more difficult. Now, what you can do is you can make sure that when you're putting out content, you're being clear about your location and you're utilizing the geo filters and the geo tags that are there. So if, for example, your restaurant is in Austin, Texas, if someone follows you or someone discovers your content, they'll be able to know that, okay, if they ever come to Austin, they'll be able to actually go to that restaurant. Or subconsciously, they're telling someone, oh, hey, you know what? Actually, I follow this restaurant in Austin and they do a really great job. It looks like they have some great burgers and some great drinks. You should definitely check it out. And so it's all about word of mouth. And when it boils down, that's really what marketing is about. It's about how can you make the best impression, and how can you even get to that audience to make that impression.
No, that's interesting. So you mentioned kind of geofencing. Can you pick where your geofencing is? And what I'm getting at here is there was this really successful marketing campaign somewhere in South America where this shoe store basically geofenced their competitor's store in the mall. And basically what happened is if the second you walked into this geofence around their competitor, you'd get a notification on your phone and it would say you have 2 minutes to get to this shoe store, and the faster you got there, the bigger of a discount that you got. And I'm kind of curious if can you do these kind of little bit kind of outlandish marketing kind of campaigns, or is it a little bit not as complicated as that? And maybe, sorry, somebody's asked what geofencing is. Maybe I'll just cover that quickly before you answer. The geofencing is basically setting it'd be like a target area. So you could say if you get 100 meters within a store, that it would pop up a notification, and that notification could say just like, welcome to the store. It could say, if you're going to a grocery store, it could say you have, 1,000 loyalty points, or you have a free promo or something like that. So you can pop up kind of notifications based on a certain, when people walk into a certain area related to a store or competitor.
Yeah, so right now you can't do anything where you're actually being able to target people in that area that have Snapchat that are able to then get a notification. But what you can do, which is what you were referring to a little bit earlier in your question, was do flash sales, right? So you're telling the person, that, okay, you have 24 hours. So for those of you who are not familiar, a Snapchat story gets basically weaved into each story that you add every time that you add 10 seconds to it, right? And so when you're sharing this story publicly, it's available 24 hours from the time that you post it. And so you're creating a lot of urgency for not only people to check your story very, very frequently, but you're also forcing them to actually use that channel over other channels because you're being more exclusive about the content you're putting out there, right? So to give you an example, Sephora does a really great job of actually not only putting out content, but they actually show some of their new products they're going to have in their stores on their Snapchat, and they don't show it anywhere else. And so me as a consumer, I feel like I have more of an in because I'm looking at that. Now imagine if Sephora took it one step further and they said, okay, we're going to be doing pre-sales for this product. And if you use this code that we're only releasing on our Snapchat for the next 24 hours, if you go on our website, you're going to get 20% off. And so you're creating urgency, you're creating exclusivity, and you're really forcing people to engage with you on that platform, which is the most important thing.
Sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess it's not really any different than, like, I know Live Nation and whatnot, just you need to be subscribed to their Facebook page to get the like pre-sale code or whatever. So it's just another way of doing that. And it makes sense. So maybe we'll take a couple questions just because they're kind of piling up a little bit. I don't understand the what is my score question.
Great question.
Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't really use Snapchat, so I'm curious.
Yeah. So your score is basically an addition, basically like a curation of the Snapchats that you have sent and the Snapchats that you have received. So for every time you send a Snapchat, you get a point, and then vice versa. And so there's different ways for you to know how, like, what your Snapchat basically means. And so if you actually go into your, I'm going to open up the Snapchat app really quickly and walk people through this if they have the app currently. If they're actually at the top of the page where it shows, I'm showing on the screen, this is basically a list of all the people who have Snapchatted me. And then at the top, it says Snapchat. And there's text on the left-hand side and there's the camera on the right-hand side. You can actually click Snapchat. And what's going to happen is your score is going to come up. So on the left-hand side, I have 14,417 points, which is the Snapchats that I have sent. So I've been using my Snapchat for 3 years. And then on the right side, my score is 13,080. So that's the amount of Snapchats I have received. And so it's basically outgoing and incoming. And so my total score is 29,000. So it's basically adding those two up together. And your Snapchat score is not, it's not a huge deal. I mean, you don't get ranked anywhere. There's no trending list on Snapchat in terms of discoverability. It just mostly reflects on how long you've been on the platform and how active you are on the platform.
Okay. No, that's good to know. So maybe I'll ask, Kathy asks, can you use Snapchat on scheduled based programs such as Post Planner and HootSuite? Or is there any other app to manage kind of a schedule?
So great question, Kathy. You actually can't schedule out anything because you have to create all of the content natively on the platform. There are third-party apps that allow you to upload after the event and basically upload something from your camera roll to your Snapchat story. But the reality is that that's not going to get the type of engagement, and you're not using the platform correctly, right? So you're not using all of the different emojis that are available, all the different text, all the different drawings. If you go on my Twitter account, which is, at Saba Sedighi, you'll be able to see, if you go through my media, a lot of different ways that I've utilized Snapchat just to create a graphic for something and to notify people of things. And so there's a lot of creative ways. And so you have to make sure that when you're using these apps, your first thought doesn't go to, how can I schedule things, right? You want to be able to engage with your audience real time, to provide them feedback or to provide them value right when it's happening, and not, something that you scheduled a week ago.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I think, and this is I'm probably not the only one with this problem, is part of my problem. Like, I use HootSuite to promote, like, and tweet and post to LinkedIn and Facebook and whatnot. And part of the problem is it's not having scheduling is almost a deal breaker for me in a lot of cases, because I can't be consistent with posting at certain times. So do I need to be consistent, or is Snapchat a little bit more, if I post at 9 a.m. or 2:30 in the afternoon, do I need to be consistent, or how does the platform kind of expect content, I guess, is a better way to phrase my question.
Okay, so two things I want to address. The first one is the scheduling, right? And how that's a barrier for a lot of people that prevents them from getting on a platform. So my answer would be, right, so for most of the social platforms that people are familiar with, such as Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, so on and so forth, there are scheduling tools. So how about if you really want, you can schedule for those platforms and you can go all in and create real-time content on your Snapchat, right? Because the audience is there and the engagement is there, I guarantee you, and it's going to pay off so much more than if you decide to live update your Facebook or your Twitter and so on and so forth. In terms of what time you should post, that's another amazing thing about Snapchat, right? Because the content and the story gets aggregated together for 24 hours, it doesn't really matter what time you post it. Because at the end of the day, if someone's going to click on your name and watch your content, it doesn't matter what time you posted that content, and they get layered into each other. And so they don't know exactly until you use, unless you use the timestamp on it.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I guess it's just a different way of thinking for certain people, because for me, I plan out basically like a lot of my tweets for the entire week on, say, Sunday, right? For example. And so it's a different way. And I guess it makes sense, and you just kind of need to almost fit it in when you can. Maybe we'll take another question from Ed. Is there a concern that there are too many platforms and only limited time to use and maintain them all? Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, that's always a concern, right? We all are limited by time and resources. And my answer to a lot of people for that is go where it's least noisy, right? Why did I tell Kevin to get on Blab to record his podcast? Because not as many people are on there versus other platforms, right? And so it allows him an opportunity to get in front of people that he couldn't have otherwise. And the same thing is true for Snapchat, right? There are so many people that I talk to, and the first thing they tell me is, Saba, can you help me with a Facebook strategy? And I ask them, why do you want to be on Facebook? And they say, well, everyone's on Facebook. And I said, well, that's not a good enough reason, right? Yes, Facebook is necessary to an extent, but at the same time, if your content is not going to be seen, why invest the money, the resources, the time, the creative manpower to create content for that platform? And so what I tell them is, why don't you move towards a platform that not as many people are on, right? I mean, Snapchat has 100 million daily users and 6 billion daily video views. It's not a tiny little app. It's been around for years now. But because people are so hesitant and they are so caught up with just the intimidation of how to use this new social platform. And when I say new, I mean, because of its interface that's not intuitive to people, they're scared and they don't want to jump in and they don't take the time to learn it. But if they do, the payoff is actually disproportionately more in their favor than if they decide to go all in on a platform such as Facebook or Twitter that is not going to give them the traction, even if they do it every single day for 6 months straight.
Sure. And I think realistically, you need to kind of try different platforms and see what kind of works and doesn't work with your target audience. Like I know just even doing the radio show and podcasts, like certain things work way better than others. Like I post the stuff to YouTube, nobody cares, to be 100% honest with you. Even the show you and I recorded on Friday, kind of about Periscope and how to use Blab, has way more listens already just and replays than stuff I recorded and posted to YouTube 6 months ago. So for me, YouTube isn't working. I haven't spent a ton of time doing it. So I can see where you're kind of going with that. And it makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'm kind of curious. Brian's asking, would Snapchat be an effective tool for wine tasting?
I think it would be an amazing tool. And the reason I say that is because I'm going to be the first person who follows you because I love wine and I would love to get educated. And that's the thing people don't understand, right? If you have a business and you're selling a product or a service and people are giving you money, there is people in the world that care about this thing, right? And so what you want to do is you want to find different ways to add value, right? So if you're a foodie, you're going to be showing them all different restaurants. If you are in the wine tasting business or you are in the wine business, you're going to be educating them about wine. You can educate them about the different wines you can pair food with. You can educate them about the pricing. You can educate them about the flavors. You can educate them about, what does it mean when a wine is older versus when it's younger? And I'm only coming up with these questions because this is a question I have as a consumer. I'm not a wine expert, right? But these are things that I want to know about. And so if you create a channel that you're able to creatively convey this information and this message, that would be extremely effective. And not only that, you're at the advantage of being probably one of the first people to be doing this business rather than the last. Rather than getting on YouTube and creating wine content like Gary Vaynerchuk did when YouTube started, right, with Wine Library, you're basically doing what Gary Vaynerchuk did with YouTube, but on Snapchat. And you're making sure that you're creating content. And Brian, if you need any more advice, you can, reach out to me. My direct message is open. I have email, and, we can chat further.
Sure. I guess the gratitude coach is asking, should I share my snaps on Facebook and I guess, and or other social media?
Yeah, good question. So cross promotion is a huge, huge part of Snapchat. And the main reason is that it doesn't have its own discoverability that is actually built into the application. And so what I mean by discoverability is, you don't have hashtags that you can utilize. There's no explore page. There's no discover page. There's no trending page. There's none of that stuff, right? So they took out all that clutter that you don't need, the followers, the following, all these like vanity metrics that are really not valuable on a platform, and they just show content. So the only way for you to get more followers and to get more viewers on your Snap story is to actually cross promote. And the way you do that, I believe her name is Tony, I guess, Grateful Tony. What you do is actually you save your complete Snap story. And from there, you can either, drop it into a Canva frame or, edit it really nicely. And in terms of editing, I mean, because the video is vertical, you might not want to post it natively like that, just so it fits kind of the Facebook model. And, you show your story and you show, what content you're providing on Snapchat. And if people are liking it and you already have a built-in sort of community and audience on there, that way they'll be able to find you and they'll be able to connect with you. And you can do that as well I share a lot of my very creative snaps on Twitter. I share them on Peach. I share them on Facebook sometimes. I share them on my Instagram. I talk about it on my Instagram. And so you want to find different ways that you can talk about Snapchat as a platform and the fact that you use it without being spammy, but just showing the content that you create.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Actually, one more thing someone mentioned in the chat is Slinger. Great call, Jed. One of the things about Slinger that I really, really love is that Slinger is the probably only discoverability application right now where you can actually find snappers because they're uploading their content onto a feed. And so the only content you can actually upload is vertical content. So this application was specifically made for Snapchat users. And the great thing is that once you get a lot of likes and engagement, you start trending. And the important thing about trending is that more people are finding you. And that's probably the biggest difficulty that people have about, how do I grow my audience?
Sure. So do you maybe have some other tips on kind of how to grow your audience? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so there's different ways. So the first one is you can actually do a Snapchat takeover. And so if there is someone, I'll just take, I believe, Brian, who asked about wine tasting. Let's say there's already an account that it does a lot of wine content. A good thing for you to do is to connect with them. And if they're already Snapchatting, you make sure that you go and you say, hey, let's do a Snapchat takeover. I take over your Snapchat and I provide your audience with wine content. And then vice versa, I take over your Snapchat and I do something on yours. And so that way you're basically cross-promoting with the same audience.
Sure.
Another way to grow your audience is to, just give them a call to action. If you're providing really great content every single week, every single day on your story, you say, hey guys, if you really like my stories, could you please give me a shout out on your story, right? And so they're going to be shouting you out. And a lot of people have asked me, if I tag someone, if I write @ in the text and I put someone's handle, do they get tagged? Do they get a notification? No, they do not. It is just text. And so really what you're going to be doing is you're just going to be familiarizing them with that person's Snapchat handle so they can add it. Or actually, Jed Record did this for me once. He actually put my Snap code in his Snap story. Now they can just screenshot that and then later on upload that image, which actually recognizes the code and automatically adds you in.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Tony's asking, great snappers to follow.
Yeah, good one. I think you should follow me. But to be honest, the content that I post is mostly a lot of creative content. I post a lot of food. I post a lot of travel, a lot about lifestyle. I'm more of a storyteller through pictures and videos. I'll go to a museum. And for those of you you who are in this live session right now, you will know what kind of content I post. Another one for motivation is the Carlos Gill. I can put him in the chat here. He is great. He works for, a large corporation. He does a lot of motivational content, and he really provides value and does mini tutorials and lets you know when he's putting out new content. Another great one is Sean Ayala, and I'll put him in the chat as well.
Sure.
Him and M. Platko both do a lot of creative content, and they're artists on Snapchat. So they get hired a lot by brands to create creative content for their users using the drawing tool. And so those are the 4 individuals. In terms of brands, there's a lot of great brands. There's Thrillist that does a lot of food content and, where to go, what to do. Sephora, if you're a girl, Taco Bell. Apple Music has a really great Snap Story. They do a lot of music features. And so those are a few I would recommend right off the bat.
Okay. You mentioned kind of just what you personally post, and you're kind of, you said you post food and museums. Do you find that posting kind of in a variety of different areas is helpful, useful, or, is it really based on kind of what you're trying to do? I guess, like, what kind of content should you be posting? Should it all be similar? Should it be different? What's your experience with that?
Right. So, well, you have to think about it in terms of what your goals are. And so for me, I'm more of a personal brand. And so what I'm trying to do is to just allow my audience to get to know me better. And so for them to know, when I'm not, talking about marketing and social media and business and all these other things on other platforms, and when I'm working, what am I doing with my time? And so it gives them sort of a frame into who I am as a person. Now, if you're a brand, or if you're someone that has a small business, you want to be telling your business's story or your brand story. And so you're going to be creating content tangent and around, what you're selling or what service you're providing. And so the answer to that is really, it depends on, how you're utilizing Snapchat. Is this a business account? Is this just a personal account? Are you a solo entrepreneur where you're just basically trying to connect with your audience? And I would tell people, just look at how people created content on YouTube and they got creative. You can be 10 times more creative on Snapchat with that content.
No, I think that's really good advice. Do you ever promote the brands that are kind of our clients of yours on your personal Snapchat, or does it depend?
No, usually I don't. I mean, I think that one thing that we have to all be really aware of is we have to respect our audience, right? So, some people say, oh, can you give me a shout out? But I've seen their content. It's not that it's not good. It's just, it doesn't, it's not going to resonate with my audience.
Sure.
And so you have to be very careful with how you use these platforms. Just like any media channel that you have or distribution channel, you don't want to take advantage of those viewers, right? Because they're going to start dropping off so quickly. And so, you have to be really aware of who you're promoting, what you're doing. I actually don't promote that much. I actually just create a lot of content, and I just utilize it on more of the creative front. But some people, they're more about sort of the motivation and calling people out, shouting them out, making sure that other people know about different products. And if there is something that fits, I'm okay with it. But in general, you're not going to be seeing me, shout out my favorite brands or shout out my clients or anything like that.
No, that makes sense. I suppose you would just use their Snapchat to do that.
Well, I just teach them how to leverage the platform to grow it in an organic, natural way. And so that's really kind of where I step in, and to make sure that, I strategize with them about the content. And a lot of people get stuck on that. How do I create content? I've created some of my best Snap stories being on vacation with my family, just hanging out with them at home. I created a really amazing Snapchat about just like a cooking series. Like, we were all cooking and I did a bunch of different things. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can create content, but sometimes, you have to kind of step out of your comfort zone in order to figure out how to best present that.
Sure. No, I think that makes sense. Brad asks, what opportunities do you see for Snapchat to play in the part of customer service or customer experience?
Well, I think customer experience is just the storytelling, right? So how are you able to convey sort of that experience? Like we were talking about earlier about the airline, how are you showing your audience, what it feels like to have an experience with this airline? So I think customer experience comes really hand in hand with really great storytelling. In terms of customer service, I mean, there's a chat feature, there's a direct message feature. There's actually like a FaceTime version of, Snapchat Live. And so when you're in the chat, if the icon on the right-hand side turns blue, you're actually able to click on that in live video chat. And so, if someone has a question and they're, hitting you up on Snapchat and they're saying, hey, I have this issue with my product, or I'm stuck on this, and they're, seeking support, the best way is if they Snapchat you, why don't you just click on that button and help them right there, right? And so that's a really simple way for you to provide customer service.
No, I think that's really good advice. Sandra's asking, do you need to follow each other to chat?
Great question. So yes. So, well, yes and no. So it depends on the settings that person has on their Snapchat. So for example, I allow everyone to watch my Snap story. So even if I don't add them onto my list, they're able to watch my Snap story. Now, they're not able to actually swipe up during my story and chat with me and engage. But if someone that doesn't follow me, or if someone that I don't follow, or vice versa, if I chat them, they will actually receive the chat. Whether they decide to open it or respond, it's kind of up to them.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. We've had a couple of questions that didn't make it into the question field. I'm just trying to go through it. We provide online library content for those training and working in the mental health field. Wondering how to create engaging content in that field. I guess a kind of any field that is maybe not necessarily in the tech or kind of, I'm not really sure.
Well, I think it's more about, so those organizations, you're not always going to be talking about it because maybe it's something that you can't talk about. But what I would tell them is, the other side of the token is actually creating awareness around it. So creating creative campaigns around awareness, right? And so, there's awareness around suicide, around depression, around AIDS, around rape victims. And so all these different things are not things that you can necessarily directly create content around, obviously, right? Sure. But what they do is they just create a campaign that's content centric to increase awareness. And that's how you need to use Snapchat.
Okay. No, that's really good. I'm just trying to think. No, I don't. If anybody has any other questions, just keep them coming and we'll ask them. So I'm kind of curious to know, what would you recommend to people that are kind of still on the fence about kind of using Snapchat and maybe they're just kind of scared to move to that platform? What would you kind of tell them to kind of say about time, like, let's go to this thing? Because to be honest, I would even put myself in that category, right? I'm not using it to promote any of the stuff that I'm doing. So kind of, what would you kind of tell people that are a little bit still on the fence?
I would tell them that it's probably not the first time that they've been scared to do something in their life. And this is the exact same thing, right? Sure. And that sounds cliche. That kind of sounds, oh, that's an easy answer, but that's the truth, right? When we're scared of something, we have to think about why we're scared of it. Are we scared that we're not going to be able to use it properly? Are we scared that no one's going to care about our content? Are we scared that, we're not going to be good enough? I mean, there's so many barriers that we mentally create for ourselves. And so what I would tell someone is that, just try it out. Just do a couple snaps, follow the 4 people that I mentioned. They're going to be able to show you kind of the power of Snapchat. And from there, you can just kind of, dabble in it. And when you first start out and you don't have a large audience, you don't have to be scared about, people judging you, because ultimately you're not going to have a huge audience. I always make kind of the parallel of, when I first started doing live video and doing, I have 3 podcasts of my own. It wasn't easy for me, but over time I grew my audience and I grew my skill level. And the same thing is true with Snapchat. When I first began 3 years ago, it A, didn't have the functionality it has today, and B, I didn't have the audience I have today. And so I didn't have to worry. And so for those that are scared or they're not sure, there's one question of, do you even want to be on a social networking app? But if you do, and you're just scared of, all the barriers, I would tell them, A, come talk to me or someone that really understands Snapchat, and B, to really just try it out and to just, see if it'll work. Because I will assure you that Snapchat is one of those things that once you kind of find your niche and find your comfort zone in terms of the creativity, you're going to absolutely love it. One of the reasons that Snapchat has done so well and has grown as large as it has in the past 3-4 years is actually the intimacy that the Snapchat community provides being able to actually reach a large audience. And what I mean by intimacy is that it's not, your content is not all over the web, right? So it's not like your Facebook profile or your Twitter profile. When you're posting content, only those that are friends with you are seeing those stories and seeing that content. And so that intimacy really creates a little bit more comfort when you're creating content in the beginning.
Sure. No, that's really good advice. So I'm kind of curious, is there age ranges that you would say traditionally use Snapchat over kind of other age ranges, or is it kind of any age range?
Yeah. So right now, the dominant age range for Snapchat is skewed towards millennials. So between 13 and 35. So that's really where the demographic is. But if we think about it, I mean, they have a huge buying power. If we're talking, straight marketing, I mean, they are a very, very important demographic. And by 2017, they're going to be a larger part of the population than baby boomers are, and they're going to outspend them. And so when we think about it like that, that's basically the stats right now show that 60% of 13 to 37-year-olds are on Snapchat. It has 100 million daily users moving up, growing daily. And it has 6 billion daily video views. And to compare it, Facebook has 8 billion daily video views. So in comparison, a platform that is less than 5 years old has more daily video views than a platform that is almost a decade old.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting when you put it that way. I didn't I knew it was as big as that, but I just didn't, I guess, really think about it too heavily. But it makes a lot of sense, and I guess it really depends on who you're marketing for. Like you said, if you're outside of that kind of millennial age group, maybe Snapchat's not for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even if you're in the 40 or 50-year-old range, I mean, I know 40 and 50-year-olds that Snapchat, and I personally know that because I follow them and I follow their content. Right. And it's actually just a different perspective, right? It's like the same thing of saying, Twitter is skewed towards millennials and techies. I mean, that's true, but at the same time, you still have the older generations that are still on there and that are engaging and they're creating content in a different way.
Sure. And a bunch of people even in the chat are saying I'm over 35 and posting. So no, it's good. That's awesome. So Ed's asking, any good resources for creating stories on Snapchat?
Yeah. So maybe he could clarify if he's still in the chat in terms of what he means by resources, but I'm going to go based on sort of my assumption. Sure. Resources for me are more about the tools that it provides. Now, if you're looking for, resources in terms of examples, you can actually go on Slinger, and that's where you can find a lot of great quote unquote resources for the different types of content, right? Because when you're only following the people that you follow and there's no discover page, there's no explore page like Instagram has, or like, Twitter has the trending content, you don't see what other people are creating. And so one thing you want to do is you want to be connected to people that necessarily you might not follow yet, but you're able to see your content. And that's what Slinger provides. It provides a community of people that are uploading the content that they created on Snapchat so that other people can discover it and other people can, basically subconsciously learn from them about how you can actually utilize all the different features, such as, for example, the geo filters, the fast forward, the backwards, the slow motion, the layering, the graphics, the emojis. I mean, there is just such a wide range of ways to utilize these platforms that I think if you get on Slinger, or if you follow me, if you follow Carlos, if you follow some of the brands, you'll really be able to see these platforms used optimally. Sure.
So do you think that they're going to bring a discover page now that more marketers are kind of on Snapchat?
I mean, do I think so? No. Do I hope so? absolutely not. Right. I think that when you change the DNA of a platform, it makes a huge impact, right? It kind of goes back to something that I'm going to compare to something people are familiar with is when, Twitter talks about changing the 140 characters.
Yeah,
That's something
totally.
that's a part of their DNA, right? That's like a main reason people use the platform. And if Snapchat, if they try to create a page where people are discovering, different people, I mean, it's just going to get messy, and we don't need that. It's actually better for them to continue the way they're doing, because now people have to take all of their other social equity that they've built, and they need to promote their Snapchat. And a couple of ways for people to do that is one, which is something that I've done, is put your put your Snapchat code on your Twitter banner. You can put it on your Facebook banner. You can put it on your website. You can put your Snap code. You can put it under your blog post at the end of it as a way to sign it. You can, create stickers with your Snap code and put it in different places. So there is just so many different ways for you to cross promote, and it's actually better for Snapchat if you do so.
Sure. And one guy even mentioned LinkedIn, and I know some people put different handles and whatnot in their email signatures, depending on kind of who you're emailing, right? So I think it's just kind of, I do like the idea of cross promotion, right? And I think you bring up a really good point with kind of cross promotion. And you can even maybe, what do you think about the people that just say, tweet out, just add me on Snapchat or other networks? Have you had experience with that? Like, do you think that's a good idea, bad idea? Because I know there's a bunch of ways to kind of get followers, and some are a little bit more kind of gray and acceptable to certain people than others, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an easy way to go about it. Hey, add me. But really what you want to answer is why they should add you. So what I try to do is I try to upload an image that works really well with the dimensions of Twitter pictures and show them and showcase my Snapchat, creativity and my Snapchat art. Because really that's what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, you should follow me because, and then show them the content. Now you can just say, add me. It probably won't be as effective. The other thing to do is to growth hack some of these newer social networks. For example, Peach, which I recently covered on my podcast last week, and to actually start posting your Snapchat content on there and pushing your Snapchat. And I had 15 people add me overnight, right? And so how are you able to growth hack and really be able to reach a newer set of audiences, which is really what being good, I think, at marketing is about, is not only taking advantage of your current audience, but finding new audiences. And that's why when people say, is there an overload of platforms? Yes. But if you had to choose, why would you choose to be on the more noisy platform if you don't already have an audience versus the less noisier platforms that don't have as much people, but you'll be able to get so much more engagement out of?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's actually really important to stress to everybody kind of listening. But Saba, sorry, we're out of time. And so maybe let's close the show with kind of promoting where people can find you, obviously on Snapchat. Maybe if you want to talk about kind of your podcasts and your shows that you're doing, and kind of anywhere else that people can find you online.
Yeah, of course. So if they want to find me online, I am on Twitter at Saba Sedighi, SabaSedighi. My handle and username is the same as well if you want to find me on Instagram as well as on Snapchat. If you were in this live blab, make sure that you chat me on Snapchat. I'll definitely want to say hey to you. Thank you for joining in. And my podcast, I do 3 podcasts per week on Blab as well. So the first one is Social 545, which is about what's trending in social media. So we sort of talk about the latest trends as well as the latest influencers that are making a lot of noise. The second podcast that I do is called CreativNation, which is an intersection between business, marketing, and creatives. And I do that on Mondays with Amrit Singh, who is a creative designer from the UK. And the third show that we're bringing back, which we kind of had a break on for a little bit, is going to be a tech news show with the CEO of Blab, Sean Puri, who's my co-host. So 3 podcasts, kind of a variety of topics for those of you who are interested in different things, marketing, business, tech, creativity. And you can actually email me if you want to, if you have any questions or you want to work with me. My name is Saba at iStreamSocial.com. So super, straightforward email address.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for being on the show. This has been awesome, and it seems like everybody enjoyed it. So Thanks again for doing this and being on Building the Future.
Thanks. Of course. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
All right. Talk soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the show. I'm also going to be at the Startup Expo in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, February 16th and 17th, recording shows. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com. Until next time, keep building the future.